So recently, a writer died, and she was given the choice of whether or not she was going to go to hell or she was going to go to heaven. Now, being a prudent decision maker, she said, you know, I'd like to take a look at both of them first, see which one's going to be the better fit. So she's descending her way down into the fiery pits, and she sees writers chained to endless rows of tables. They're in a sweatshop, and they're getting whipped with thorns and branches as they write. And she says, this looks horrible. Let me see the other place. Heading up into the clouds of heaven, and she looks, and she sees endless rows of tables of writers. They're chained to the tables as they write, getting whipped with thorns and switches. And she says, wait a second. This is the same thing I just saw down there. And she hears a voice coming from the clouds and says, no, it's not. These writers are getting published. I'm not your adversary, I promise. So I want to make an apology right from the get-go here before we get going. To be honest with you, I would be much more qualified to talk on this a month from now, say late April. So I guess I just want to clear the air with that. The good thing is I'm a lot more qualified than I was in February when I could have been giving this talk also. And that really should give you an idea of how quickly this industry is changing. It has nothing to do with my effort on the subject. It just has to do with the fact that we're in the middle of an industry revolution right now. And I think sometimes we forget as romantic writers, I mean, I come from a writing background first, not from publishing. I think sometimes we imagine ourselves in our little writing spot, that place that we go that inspires us. I like to go places where I can see people, where I can feed off of their energy and observe them and build them into my characters. And we want to write this great book, have it printed, smell nice, and have somebody sitting by the fire and reading it and loving it, right? I mean, isn't that the dream of a writer? But the truth of the matter is even the role of the writer is changing. People are reading books differently. They're buying them differently. They're finding them in different ways. And it's important for all of us as writers to recognize that so that we can stay relevant. You know, just a few things to think about today. First of all, why do we write? We write because we want people to feel the impact of our words. Anybody here write for that reason? Just a couple? Okay, I'm frightened right now. Okay. How many people want a lot of books sold? Okay, that's important too, right? How many people would love to be able to support their living purely by writing? Okay, that's good. So it's important, right, that we understand our audience and understand who it is that we're reaching. I mean, I have to even ask the question, am I relevant as a publisher? Nowadays, the solutions for writers out there to be able to publish their own work, get it edited, get it marketed, sell it, get paid for it, you can do it all right from a desk in your house, right? So am I even relevant? These are just some things we've got to think about. So one of the things that we look at, I think we have to understand a little bit of publishing history. I'm just going to give a really brief taste of the things that I think are most important. What happened in 1454? Why was that important? Gutenberg, good. Okay, we've been studying. So movable print, pretty important, right? Truth of the matter is once movable print came along, books have pretty much looked somewhat similar to what they were then, even up to today, right? Okay, let's fast forward a little bit then. Time frame, 1875, 1903. Anybody know why that was important? Anybody? Offset printing. Offset printing went through the Renaissance and development of its own in the late 1800s. And that methodology is still very similar to what's used today, okay? So let's fast forward a little bit more. I'm going to go in quicker here. 1949. Anybody know why that was important? It's actually important to a lot of you in this room here, based on the books I saw in the back. 1949, Fawcett Publications. Anybody know who that is? Oh. Gold medal books. Has anybody ever read a gold medal book? They were not the first paperback books. They weren't the first ones that cost 25 cents, and they certainly weren't the first ones to fit in your pocket. But they opened up a new age for writers like yourselves and like myself to give new people to the industry an opportunity to break in. Kurt Vonnegut actually broke his way in through Fawcett Publications, gold medal books. They were sold for $0.25 apiece. Okay? Why is this so important in our industry? The reason why it's so important, not because they were the first paperbacks, but they were the first ones to actually take off and be successful as a series. In the first 6 months, they sold almost 10 million copies of their books. That's a pretty significant impact, isn't it? So the reason why it's important to us today is that actually changed the methods of bringing in new authors, changed the methods of production, even changed the way that publishers look at royalties. So we're going to fast forward again. So this is a pretty significant point in our history, okay? It's going to start getting quicker here. Let's fast forward to 91, 93, that time frame. You know what developed then? Digital printing. Digital printing, okay? So a lot of books back there were printed on digital presses, right? Now the technology's taken some time to develop, but now it's getting to a point where it's actually almost indetectable with a quality digital print book from an offset print book. Well, why is this important? I hear people around the industry that kind of lift their nose up. Print on demand, you've heard that term before, right? But the truth of the matter is it's important in any product that we make to be able to produce it at whatever volume we need. Pretty soon, offset printers are going to go away. For the first time in over 100 years, most books are eventually going to be done through either digital printers or the next thing we're going to talk about. Okay, so you with me so far? 1454, 1873, 1949, 1991. Okay, these are significant moments. But listen to how many of them have been significant since then. 1995, Amazon.com goes live. If you don't know why that's not important to you, then you probably have been living under a rock. And I'm assuming you didn't buy it from Amazon. 1999, new format opens up for making ebooks a possibility. Now, ebooks weren't developed in 1999. Some people say they were actually developed in the 60s. But this is a point in time where it actually started to become possible for writers like you and I to make an ebook that could get out to a broad audience. So 95, we got Amazon. 99, ebooks. 2006, Sony comes out with a reader that has e-ink in it. 2007, Amazon comes out with a Kindle. 2009, Barnes & Noble comes out with a Nook. 2009 also, Amazon merges two of the largest self-publishing spaces, CreateSpace and BookSurge. Brings them together and makes one of the most important elements for self-publishing, self-published authors in the world. 2010, iPad comes out. Changes the way we look at books entirely. 2011, Amazon announces that their electronic books have outsold their print books. Think about that. Their electronic books have outsold their print books. 2012, the Department of Justice launched an investigation into Apple and 5 of the big boy publishers for collusion on price fixing with ebooks. You don't think this stuff matters to us? It's very, very important. For 500 years, we had maybe 6 or 7 significant events in the world of publishing. In the last decade, we've matched that number. You better believe it's an important time for writers. So obviously there's some challenges that come from that, right? More and more ebooks get sold. That's less and less being read by the fireplace, where you can smell the pages, where you know how far you are into the book based on what's between your thumb and your knuckle, right? It's even gotten to the point where aspirations have changed. So a few years ago, a young man was speaking to a guidance counselor, and they were talking about where he was going to be going in his career. He said, well, I want to be a writer. Well, that's great. No, I want to be a great writer. So the guidance counselor says, okay, what's going to make you a great writer? He says, well, I want to write things that reach people all over the world. I want to make them scream and cry. I want to make them feel the pain and frustration that comes out of my writing. Anybody know who that is? I don't either. He works for Microsoft and he writes error messages. Our world's changing. So let's talk about a few challenges that come from the digital age and the digital evolution, okay? First of all, here's some obvious ones, shortcuts. The easier it is for people to do something difficult, and writing a book is difficult, isn't it? Creating a book is difficult, publishing a book is difficult. The easier those steps get, the more likely it is that people are to cut corners, okay? Another thing that happens from the anybody here been published by one of the New York publishers? Anybody have aspirations for that? Would you like to see your book published by a Random House, by a Penguin? I would. Yeah. Well, one of the things that's happening is because so many more new titles are being put into the market every year, they're not even paying attention to those first-time authors that they bring on. They may like your book. The first question they're going to ask you after they accept it is, what's your marketing plan? So, excuse me? You're the publisher, right? I thought you had the marketing plan. Believe it or not, they're often not even going to pay attention to your book until you yourself sell 10,000 copies of it. 10,000 copies, right? That's a lot of books. The most obvious thing, though, is the dilution of quality. And I think for a group like what we have here today, this is what we should be most concerned with. You guys have been coming together for 25 years in a common appreciation for a very important art, the art of writing. And when it's easy for people to not only write a book, get it edited, get it published, get it marketed, get it sold, all from their desk chair, what's that really going to mean to the quality of books that are out there? The further, that's right, the further we go into the digital market, the poorer quality the average book's going to be. Anybody here use an e-reader? A few people? It's not that big a deal if a book costs $1 or $2 to go and buy 10 books, right? It's not that hard to, you're sitting there, maybe you want to buy a book on how to prune your lemon tree. So you go and you find 5 of them on there, you figure, well, one of these ought to be pretty good, they're only $1 a piece, right? Well, what do you think is going to happen when the number of titles that's published, which by the way is 1 million new titles a year, which is a huge number, what do you think is going to happen when that is 2 million or 3 million? It's going to be hard for you to find a good book on pruning your lemon trees, right? Personally, for me, I don't want to go and buy 10 books, have 7 of them not be very good, 2 of them be marginal, and maybe have one that's a good book. But that's actually part of the potential of what we're seeing in the digital market, okay? But I think there's going to be a response to that. I think that readers are not going to accept that. I believe that in the next 2 years, we're going to actually see a backlash from those readers who say, wait a second, I'm not going to keep buying these books. I don't care if they're $1, I don't care if they're a penny, they're not good, right? And if you don't think that could happen, let's go back to that point in time in 1949 when Fawcett starts again, because believe it or not, we've already been through this. When those books started publishing, they sold 10 million copies of them. Other publishers said, oh, wait a second, we're going to get on board with this. They rushed to market, they pushed their editors, they pushed the quality, and pretty soon, those little paperback books that were coming out were garbage. And the reader said, we don't like that. So let me ask you a question now. Did paperback books survive? The 15 top publishing companies in North America sell more than 50% of their books in the paperback form. Okay, they sell 15 to 20% as an ebook, and the remainder as hardcover and audiobooks, okay? Paperback did survive. And you know what? Nobody thinks of paperback as far as a poor quality in terms of how a book is written anymore, right? So we're actually seeing a resurgence of this again. We're going to be seeing it now with digital books. Digital books are an important medium, and I think for a community of writers like this, it's a very important conversation to keep having. It doesn't matter if you have an e-reader. I still prefer to pick up a book and hold it in my hand. For whatever reason, I feel emotionally connected with it. I feel like I remember, oh, that line, it was on a left-hand page about midway down, right? And I can go and find it again. I don't know if that'll ever change for me. But I do have an e-reader, because I want to know what it looks like. I want to know what it feels like, and I want to know how people are getting their books on here. So when these negative things happen, when these challenges come that challenge the sanctity of this art that we love, aren't there some opportunities too? Anybody in here own a business? Okay. Small business owners understand that there's a very important time in our economy when we need to be starting businesses, right? When we need to be making a push. It's when things are low. We have a recession hitting, when nobody's spending money on advertising. Small business owners understand they have to move into action. I think the same is true in any industry. So as the product quality goes down, as there's a backlash from readers that says, wait a second, we're tired of buying these garbage books. We need to know that what we're buying is going to be a better book. Well, you know what? Opportunities abound. By the way, I went into Books A Million the other day. There was a girl right at the door standing there. She says, welcome to Books A Million. And I said, well, thanks. This is fantastic. Can you show me where the self-help section is? She says, sure, but wouldn't that defeat the purpose? So what are some of the opportunities that open up for us? I want you to listen carefully to these, because if you are self-publishing your book, you have become the publisher. And that doesn't just mean that you went and found the editor, that you went and found the proofreader, that you found somebody to design your cover, that you found somebody to lay it out or did it yourself, you found somebody to print it. Publishers become more than that. I'm going to talk about it in a minute. So what are some of the opportunities that open up? Well, the first thing that's obvious is brand. For 50 years, maybe 35, the publisher's brand hasn't mattered nearly as much as the name of the author or the title of the book. Anybody here heard of Harry Potter? Okay. Anybody here know who published them in the US? Tell me if you do. Scholastic. Do you know who published them first in the UK? Who? So, by a recent survey of Harry Potter readers, you would fall in the 8% group. These are the people who are actually picking up the book and reading it. They don't even know who published it. All right? The publisher's brand hasn't mattered. The author's brand hasn't mattered until the author has actually really sold books. It doesn't matter if you have a cool name, if you have a cool book concept, right? That's going to be changing. Because when the quality of books goes down, when people are getting ebooks and they're saying, I don't like these books, I want something better, guess what they're going to start to do? They're going to try to figure out how to know which books are good. Who are they coming from? Which publishers are publishing them? Which marketplaces are they buying them in that have good quality control? If I just get it on Amazon, do I know it's going to be good? If I get it from Barnes & Noble, is it going to be better? These are some things that are going to start opening up in our industry. Marketing. Think about the fact that when somebody wants to go on a book tour, imagine what the costs might be, okay? Let's say we're going to go on a book signing to get people excited. Plane tickets. We need people that travel with the author. We need to do a production run of the books that we send out and ship to all the stores. Right? We need to do marketing. We need to send out flyers. We need to get people on the ground in front of it. It's a lot of costs associated. Nowadays, we can actually market right from our desk. In the digital world, this can all be done right from our desk. Not only is it cheaper, but we can test it. Right now, I can create a website about your book and make 2 different pages. Each one of them is meant to attract my readers in a different way. In 1 week, I can put that site out there, do a marketing test, and see which site people click on more often. And you know what? In 1 week, I have my answers back. That's fast. That makes a big difference when it comes to getting our books out there and getting to people to tell us if they're quality. It also means we can go longer. When I looked through the table back there, I saw some books on the table that were printed in 2002. Okay? Now, I'm not meaning to be insulting at all, but the fact of the matter is, that's 10 years ago. Okay? That means that same quantity of books are still trying to be sold 10 years later. In the digital world, we can relaunch a book over and over and over again, and we don't have to add in cost. Once we've written the marketing materials, we just got to tweak them up a little bit and send them out. We can market almost for free for years to keep a book moving, to keep it selling. We can update the content in it and re-release again. Wouldn't that be important to some of you here who want to sell your books? To realize that there are ways that you could do it that would cost very little, but would allow you to market it for another 10 years? That's important, isn't it? So, what else? Creativity. Has anybody picked up a Kindle Fire or a Barnes & Noble Color? Have you looked at any of the kids' books? I suggest everybody in this room, the next time you're in a Barnes & Noble, pick up one of their color test e-readers, okay? Find one of their children's books that they already have loaded on there, and you'll be amazed. The children's books have come to life. They talk to you. The Peanuts characters, Charlie Brown and Lucy, they actually dance to the piano music, which plays while you read it, right? This is a new age of books. These aren't even books anymore. I don't even think we have a name for it yet. Video books, they're actually more like apps, like the apps that you would see on a smartphone. They're interactive. They involve more than just words. Imagine a time when you can open up your e-reader and hear a personalized introduction from the author. Hear a foreword from somebody who has some stake in the book or has something positive to say. And as you're reading, the words fade away into an image. And they fade into a video. And you actually see the video of that concert that that musician is talking about, that they had a life-changing breakthrough in. Or you're actually seeing the waters off of Gulf Breeze that the author is writing about. This is part of the future of books. Okay? 20% of books in North America are sold in a digital form. It's already happening. The wave is already here. So, some strategies, right? What are some things that we can be doing as publishers and writers? How do we adapt to this? If we've been writing a certain way and publishing a certain way for 20 years, how do we just change that? Let me ask you a question first. If you're lost in the woods, and you could get directions from an agent, a publisher who publishes everything you write, or Santa Claus, who would you ask for directions? An agent. I hate to tell you it's the agent, because the other two are hallucinations. So let's talk really quick about some strategies, okay? First of all, what is a publisher's purpose? Can somebody help me out here? Just call out some things.
Make money.
Okay. Make money, that's fine. Isn't that every business's purpose? In a certain sense. What does a publisher actually do? What's their role?
Represent you.
Represent you, what else? To get your book out there, to market it. What else? Keep you on track. Anything else?
Distribute.
Distribute. Bring together the editors, the layout people, right? The truth of the matter is you don't need that anymore. I asked you at the beginning, am I relevant as a publisher? First of all, on the money topic, I don't do anything in my life unless it has a purpose that goes far beyond money. Right? And as a writer, I think we need to approach things the same way. If we don't look out there and see a reader and see somebody that can be affected and see how they can be affected, we're doing them a great disservice. I heard that you were talking about feeling in your writing, right? If you don't have that feeling there, if you don't care about the person that's reading it at the other end, you're wasting your time. Writing is one of the most amazing things. You know why? It's one of the few times in our lives when complete strangers will give control of their emotions to us. They will open up a book. They will read what we have to say. They will listen, and they will go wherever we take them. So where are we taking them when we write? The role of a publisher has changed. It is not to coordinate. You can do that now. You have the ability to go out and find editors. You have the ability to go out and find proofreaders. You have the ability to market your book. You even have the ability to distribute it now. The role of the publisher can be summed up in one word. You ready? Vision. The role of a publisher is to see the project from start to finish. It's to understand who's going to be reading it, who buys it, why they buy it, all the way from the beginning of the concept. Because I'll tell you something, if you're writing a book about bananas, you're editing this book, and you go and find the very best editor you know. They hole themselves up in a little apartment in New York, and all they do all day is edit books. They've been doing it for 20 years. They're the best. If that book is targeted towards children, it's going to have a very different feel to it than if it's targeted towards middle grade readers, right? What if it's targeted towards pre-med students instead of just adults? The fact of the matter is the role of a publisher, and if you're self-publishing, you have this role, is you've got to be able to see the entire vision of what you're doing. You need to know when you're making those decisions of what to cut, what to move, what to rewrite, who's on the other end, who's reading it, how are they going to be different at the end. So here's some of what we're doing. And I encourage you, if you'd like to write some of these things down, these are things you can do as well, some of them. Right? In 2012 alone, we've already rebranded our company. You heard Bonnie mention Zender House or now Indigo River Publishing. Wanted something that better reflected our methodology and our tone as a publisher. We've rebranded. We've started tweeting and blogging, and I just now know what those are. So yes, I tweet and I blog, I think. We've dug deeply into the last 3 years of the marketing and selling of books. We've been looking at the digital market. We've been looking at the print market. We've been looking at the international market. We've been studying the reports coming out by the organizations whose job it is to report on these things. And they collect data from publishers all over North America. We've updated all of our marketing programs. You know, when I want to get some books sold, or when I'm trying to figure out how we're going to market a book, I don't want to listen to a 9-figure publicly traded corporation to figure out how they're moving books. Is that relatable to any of us here? No, I want to know how Joe down the road selling 250,000 copies of his book on the wonderful world of masking tape, right? Because if he's finding a way to sell them, I want to know what he's doing. What's in his secret sauce? We've also brought on 6 new authors in this year so far who either have progressive topics or connected somehow in the digital world. That's how important it is to us. So what I look for when I'm reaching out to authors, or when they're reaching out to me and I want to hear what they have to say, I'm looking for a few things. And I have a feeling that I'm not the only one who stands in this place. I look for people who have an openness to this new world of books. It doesn't matter to me if somebody is tech savvy, but I want to know that they understand that that's an important part of their book. That by 2015, according to many people in the industry, 50% of all books sold may be sold in a digital format. I want to know that they're willing to be an active partner in the process, that they're willing to get in the trenches with me and with our team to push and market their book. I want to know that they have an important message. You know what one of my biggest pet peeves is? I can't tell you how many children's books come across my desk. Brilliant writing, great poetry, great pictures sometimes. No message. With all the forms of media that are bombarding a young child's ears and eyes, how can we put a book in their hands that doesn't have a message, that doesn't teach them something, that doesn't bring them to a new wonderful place? I know Joe's got a book like that. Thank you. I'm also looking for people who have a willingness to learn. I hate to say this in this crowd, but usually, my least favorite people to work with on a book are the most experienced writers. You want to know why? Because they already know everything. They can't learn anything from me. And I can't learn anything from them. The fact of the matter is, in this room today, most of you have come together as part of your art form. You brought it together to share, you create, you share with each other every month, you help each other, you teach. And my question is, how are you going to help each other from this day forward to make sure that your books can get out there and that people are going to be reading them? Especially when half of them are going to be bought on an e-reader. These are really important questions. So I don't think we're seeing the downfall of a classic artistic medium. I don't think these will go away. I won't let them, personally. If I have to buy them all myself, I'll make sure that we still, okay? But we are in a renaissance. We're in a renaissance in a new age of communication and a new age of creative expression. So I see some exciting opportunities. I see opportunities in education. Can you imagine what it would be like going into a high school, a low-income high school, that spends a minimum of $500 in the course of 4 years to put books in the hands of its students? Can you imagine if you walk in there and realize they have a $40 e-reader that they give them, that gives them all the books they need for their entire high school career? Is that not important? It doesn't matter if you only want to read it by the fire like this. Those kinds of things are important. How about internationally? How about places that are just now starting to get power sources? They're just now starting to get a basic power infrastructure. What do they need more than anything? They need knowledge. Knowledge is the most empowering force that we have around us, and we can do that through books. So yes, I do see the wave in motion. I believe this wave is in motion. I believe we're in the middle of a renaissance. I believe what this could mean for education. I believe what it could mean international. And I believe, as a writer, I have a responsibility to be a part of that change. And I hope all of you will be there to join me. And one last question. Does anybody here have an iPhone so you can tell me what's changed in the world since I started this talk? I really enjoyed being with you here tonight, and I'd love to speak with some of you after the event, especially some of you that have books back there, and talk to you about how maybe we can be involved in your organization. So thank you very much.